My biggest fear would be when the first comes and I don't get the rent.
I found that my tenant had dumped concrete down my toilet. Can you believe Fair Housing fined me $5,000 for that?
How do you onboard your tenants? What do you do?
I don't even know if I do it right.
If you're a landlord, don't just rent, rent perfect. The Rent Perfect podcast with property expert and private investigator, David Pickron.
Hey, welcome to the podcast today. This is the Rent Perfect podcast. I'm David Pickron. I'm excited to have with me from Bennett Property Management, Anne McCawley. Amazing, been in this industry her whole life, grew up in it. I think your dad was in it for most of his life. I mean, this is just in your blood.
Yes, my dad started the company in 1972, and he retired. We were just talking about it last night. He retired almost 14 years ago. So he did it for, I think, about 45 years.
Awesome. Well, Anne, tell us a little bit about your career. You grew up in it, but every day you sit down at the office and just whittle away.
I started answering phones at the office when I was about 16, and also cleaning apartments. If I never have to clean another oven, I'm a happy girl in my life. Seen some pretty gross things, obviously. Yes. But yes, now I'm in the position, I'm the owner broker, and I go to the office every day, and I manage 16 property managers and a staff of 8 people.
Okay. Somewhere 2,000, 2,500 properties. I mean, we're talking a big organization.
I wish we were still at those numbers.
Okay.
We're at about 1,600 doors right now.
That's big numbers. Because the most of our clients that we have at Rent Perfect, which I call the Rent Nation, have probably 1 to 10 doors. And the reason I love to have people come on that have more doors is because they just have more experience in seeing things. If you have one rental property and it's rented by the same person for 5 years, you don't really get a whole lot of experience, or you don't see a lot in property management. So I love to have you come on because I know you've seen it all. Other than, have you seen anything like today? Today is March 23rd, 2020. Is it 24th today or 23rd?
I don't know.
Yeah. See, we live the good life, right? We just wake up, go to work, and don't worry.
I know it's Monday.
It's the 23rd today, and we're in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic. And rents are due in 7 days, and a lot of people are out of work. A lot of places have closed down. Restaurants have closed down, as you know. And we brought you in, and we appreciate your time to say, what are you expecting? What should we expect as property managers, property owners?
Well, I'm expecting a lot more conversations about, hey, I got laid off my job, and I still have to feed my kids. You know, I don't know if I can pay my rent. Right. So I am expecting that. We have already experienced a little bit of that, and also I'm expecting our owners to be concerned about collecting rents, but I'm also already experiencing compassion too, of saying that, you know, we told them we want to work with our residents, and so they're listening.
They're listening. Okay. And I think the problem that all of us have is who's really affected by this and who's just trying to not pay their rent. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
But we have to have compassion. We have to believe them. And we figure that this has affected a lot of lives.
Well, unfortunately, I tell a lot of people I'm old and cynical. And most of the reason of that is because I've been a landlady for 30 years.
Yeah.
It's not that I always tell people, I don't want to say that you're lying to me, but I think you might be fibbing. And so...
Well, you know, because we get that all the time. I mean, that's not unusual in this business, and so we're kind of trained to watch out for it.
Right, and most of the time we don't have something like COVID-19 that's all over the place in your face. You know. Right.
Well, we're going from the strongest economic numbers to an absolute collapse in 2 weeks, and I've never seen anything like this. You know.
The only thing that I was doing this when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And it wasn't really that people had lost their jobs, although some did, obviously, but it was that people were afraid.
Okay.
That was a big, I think that was like everybody got knocked on their butts,
Right.
Stunned.
Right.
And to me, I'm harking back to that a little bit, but no, none of us, I don't think, at the office have ever dealt with anything like this.
So I imagine in your position, you guys have a plan on how to deal with what's coming. Because I know you've been in the business for a long time. It's you cannot not have a plan, right? I know you have a plan. Tell me a little bit about how you're dealing with maybe the first comes, you're not getting some rent from some people. How are you working your way through this problem?
So my first plan was to communicate with my staff so that they have the ability to answer questions that they're being asked,
Okay.
and that they know what my expectation is of them doing their jobs. And so our first plan was that all the property managers are working remotely.
Okay.
And that the staff, my staff is still coming to work every day, and that we send an email out to all of our tenants saying, please don't come into the office. Please call us, email us, go on your tenant portal. Unless it's absolutely necessary, please don't come into the office. So that was our first, basic, triage.
Right. Right.
Going forward, we are going to ask again all of our tenants to please pay their rent online. I'm going to tell our property managers, and I have already told them this, we are sticking to our policies.
Okay.
Rent is still due, and because our fiduciary responsibility is to the owner of the
Right.
property. So, however, if a tenant calls you and says, hey, I'm having difficulty paying my rent, we have some options that they can offer to the tenant, so that, because we do want to be compassionate, we want to listen to
Well,
what they're
ultimately,
saying.
you want to, some good people in these properties paying you rent for the long term, right? It's not in any of our best interests to evict anybody.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. And, our average tenancy is about 3 years at Bennett. So we do have a lot of long-term tenants, and they have a very good relationship with their property managers usually too.
So I come into the office, or I give you a call, shoot you an email, however you want me to, and I said, hey, I've got $200 today. My rent's $800. Would you take that?
Probably not.
Okay.
Our policy is that you need to have at least half of your rent to do a partial payment.
Okay. So you are accepting partial payments. You're just saying we want at least half.
Yes, and the policy is that they have to still sign the partial payment waiver.
Okay. And in Arizona, that allows you to still continue with an eviction if they don't follow through with their payment plan.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. All right. What about your late fees?
Well, we haven't had anybody ask to waive them yet because we haven't had April rent actually hit yet.
Right.
So,
Is that something you're considering, or is it something that landlords around the nation should consider?
I think so. I think that is something that is, on top of, obviously, but we're not offering it out of the box.
Okay. On select cases that come across your desk and you're trying to work with them.
Well, you can't do that. I can't do that. A landlord can do that.
Okay.
If I have a landlord that I work for who says, I want to reduce my rents on my property and I want to waive the late fees, then I can offer to do that to their tenant.
Gotcha.
But I personally
because
can't
of fair
say,
housing issues, you're not treating everybody the same.
Yes.
But under these crazy pandemic circumstances, is there a little bit of leeway, you think, on HUD at all? And aren't you just really trying to help everybody? I don't know if you know the answer to that. I'm just wondering if there's circumstances that, we're trying to do our best to help people right now stay in their homes, and everything's good intentioned, but I don't know. I don't know. We're in uncharted waters. Maybe we'll leave that for the attorneys.
Yes, I'm not willing to face a fair housing complaint because of that at this point. So I've told my staff, what we are doing is we are doing what the law as it stands right now allows. And if a government mandate comes down that states otherwise, then we will follow that.
And I don't want to take us on a tangent here, and I don't know that we know this, but anytime you work with a partial payment at all, even not in these circumstances, isn't that an individual kind of agreement?
Well, yes, because the individual who's making the partial payment is the one who's signing the document. So I guess so.
Well, maybe that's for another day. Maybe I need to have an attorney on, and we need to discuss the fair housing and the partial payment, because I think that brings up an interesting topic I've never thought about.
Well, they're usually willing to talk, so.
And talk a lot. Okay, and then we had a little conversation before this. You talked about a tenant emergency plan. Tell me about that.
Well, this is what I would consider extreme circumstances. And it's going to be, again, a landlord and tenant individual case-by-case basis where, maybe it's both people, adults in the household they don't have their job, they work for a restaurant or a bar or whatever, and they have zero income coming in.
Okay.
There has to be in my opinion, there has to be some sort of an emergency plan. There was a guy that I saw on the internet who said that he was a private landlord, and he said that he and his wife had decided that they were going to extend funds to someone in this emergency circumstance.
Right.
I'm not in that position.
Right.
But that is, as an individual landlord, if you have the ability to do that. He specifically mentioned some of his properties don't have loans on them.
Okay.
And that he and his wife felt that they could
weather the storm a little bit.
That, yeah.
And that's very kind of them. That is stepping up to the plate. But like you said, many of us, like mine, I've got mortgages on them too, and I'm not in a position to do that.
Right, and I would never make an assumption on the part of any of my landlords that I would do that.
So I want to role play with you real quick, Anne. I'm going to role play with you. Ready? So, hey, Anne, I'm so sorry. I got laid off my job, and I'm not going to be able to pay the rent on April 1st, and so I don't know what else to tell you.
Well, Dave, I'm really, really sorry to hear that, and I know that there's a lot of people that are, in these circumstances right now. I can tell you what Bennett Property Management can do for you. Do you perhaps have part of the rent where we could do a partial payment arrangement?
I'm just trying to feed my family, so I just probably have nothing.
Okay.
For you.
Well,
I feel bad about it, but
Right. I feel bad too.
Not my fault, Anne.
Right. So, what is going to happen is that you are still going to receive a 5-day notice.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that we're going to evict you, but it's the document that protects the landlord in case you ultimately cannot at all pay your rent. So you will still receive that 5-day notice, and please keep communicating with us so that if your circumstance does change, maybe you have a family member that can help you with rent, or you can Google some rent assistance, government agencies or something like that. If that circumstance changes, then please, let us know and come in, or please don't come in, actually. Please communicate with us as early as you can so that we can get the rent paid and your family still can have a home.
Well, I love that. I love the way you handle it, because you do listen. You show some empathy. You kind of apologize that they're in that situation, right? You kind of restate everything, but then you turn that back and you really say in a nice way, I'm so sorry, but it is your problem and not mine, right?
Yes.
You can go to your church, go to your family, and, things are so fluid and changing every second of the day here in every state and our federal government and our state governments. I have a feeling with all of the stimulus package, they're going to have some kind of help out there for people. And as soon as that comes out, I'm sure we're going to be able to give them that direction to say, head on over there and get some state assistance. I don't know that that's coming, but I have a feeling that it's going to be hard to put this on the landlord's backs. The state is going to have to somehow help with this problem.
Right. Well, I'm a landlord too.
Right.
Even I don't just have a management company. I'm a land. Like you said, real estate's. Our family calls it the family sickness. Believe it or not. And maybe that's a bad joke right now, but I have mortgages to pay,
Right.
and I can only sustain that for so long myself without the rental income, and unfortunately sometimes we see people who don't have their priorities in the right place,
Right.
and so like you said, responding to them in that business minded way is
Right.
my way of reminding them that the lease is a legal binding contract and they do actually need a place to live, so that's their end of the bargain.
Well, Ann, I've known you for 20 years. You are the most compassionate person I know, and I know sometimes it's going to be hard for you to take that approach because I think you would love to help everybody if you could. It's a tough approach. I can see it in your eyes right now that, man, those are going to be some tough conversations. And I love that about you. So let's come off of that and let's just cover just a few more things before we end this awesome podcast. And we just want to thank you again for your time on that. But how are you handling any kind of work orders right now?
So right now we have basically emergency work orders only.
Okay.
We have talked to most of our vendors, and they are gloved and masked and going into properties. They're taking every precaution because of their workers.
Right. Protect both parties.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, protect the tenants too, but we're trying anything that is aesthetic or non-essential, one of the buzzwords of
Right.
the week. We're saying, please let's just hold off on that. But if your house is flooding or
Yeah, we can't, right?
we're there, we're prepared, and we have our vendors are ready to be on the property. But it's just essential only things right now.
Okay, and then one more thing I wanted to cover, kind of just throwing in kind of everything at the end here is when you show your properties for new applicants to see you use RentZap. Is that correct?
Correct.
And RentZap kind of pre-screens your applicants or the people who are interested in seeing your properties, and they get a code and they're allowed to go into the property by themselves.
Yes.
So that kind of saves you from any human interaction here. I just want your expertise here because you don't really do this, but for other landlords out there that listen that don't use a service like that still have to show up and show their place, is there any recommendations you'd have or anything you'd do right now to show a property? But I'm kind of thinking, I'm kind of lead you a little bit. I'm kind of thinking like a touch-free showing. You've just been in the industry.
That is always recommended, Dave.
So, maybe touch-free is kind of, that's, let me think about that. But what I'm thinking about is, as I'm, and I always don't have as many properties as you guys. I'm not showing every weekend, but I'm thinking in the next probably month or two when I show my properties that are available, I'm probably going to open up all the doors so no one's touching anything. Obviously, the front door we've got to touch and open and, get in. But after that, I'm going to ask my people, try to keep my distance, but ask the people I'm showing just not to have all the doors already open so you don't have to open the bathroom door. You don't have to open the closet doors. And I'm just going to tell them, hey, all the doors are open. You're going to be able to see everything. But for our safety, your safety, let's just not touch anything. And I just wanted to, get your thinking on that as the expert. Is that something that you would do if you had to show property like that nowadays?
Yes, there's, it's actually a matter of safety as well. Realtors, I'm sure you know this, but they're one of the highest percentages of people that are attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it shows a lot. It happens a lot at showings because the property's vacant. And so when you pull up to the property, park on the street. Don't park in the driveway because they can't block you in.
Right.
When you open the door, if you are actually doing a showing, personal showing, open the door and let them go in. And do a self-guided showing.
Okay.
And they can, if they want to talk to you about the property, let them come back outside and speak to you
Okay.
outside. In this particular, with touching surfaces and things, what I would recommend is that, and just about every property manager has this in the trunk of their car. Take your paper towels or your Clorox wipes or whatever you have, and after the person leaves, go back in and maybe you wipe down the doorknobs and whatever as you're exiting, lock the door and wipe the doorknobs too.
Oh, that's a nugget at the end. Thank you so much. I know you've been in this, been on the sales side, the rental side, and a lot of us smaller landlords don't understand or haven't even thought about all of that stuff you just gave us. So we're in different times right now. There's no doubt. We are in tough times.
And I'm always available if anybody ever wants to just call and ask me a question. I'm available.
That is gracious of you. Anne McCawley over at Bennett Property Management. Thank you so much, Anne. You're just a wealth of knowledge. And I just been good friends for a long time, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, stay safe out there. We're, not only fighting regulations and fighting bad tenants, but now we're fighting a little bug that's going across the world and infecting people. And so just stay safe, be healthy, and until next time, continue to rent perfect.